superhero.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Import Modify on the Prelude 5th Gen manual swap. It's going to go down, and it's probably going to happen on 2 episodes. It's going to be this one and the next one, and we should be done, right? So you guys saw me remove the engine and transmission out of the engine bay, and there's 2 reasons why I did that. One, I wanted to clean everything up so that it's all nice and clean and there's nothing all dirty and greasy. We're able to take care of that. 2, I need to work comfortably in this area for the clutch pedal, because on these chassis there's no cutout on the auto bodies for the clutch slave, and that presents a little bit of a problem because you need adequate room in order to work into that corner to drill it straight and true, because if you mess that up and it's crooked, your clutch pedal is going to be crooked as well, and that will blow the whole manual driving experience to have a displaced clutch pedal off to the side or something, right? So we got to make sure that we come up with a good plan in order to do this, and I haven't come up with a completely solid plan. I'm just going to go in there and just see what I'm up against, develop a plan of attack, and hopefully I can nail it and not screw it up, because if I screw it up, then I'm going to have to slot some holes in order to be able to put the pedal where it needs to be. So I told you on the last episode that I would gather up all the parts I need as a kit in order to tackle this, right? So I'm going to go over those parts right now as thoroughly as I can, okay? If I forget something, forgive me, because it's a little bit, right? So we have the transmission, obviously. We have everything for the clutch. We have the slave, the lines, and the master. For the manual setup, you also need the flywheel and clutch. Now, I did order a new clutch. It's not in yet. That's why I'm going to have to do this in 2 episodes. So you want the flywheel with the flywheel bolts. There's a difference between automatic transmission drive plate bolts and manual transmission flywheel bolts. Make sure you have the manual transmission flywheel bolts. On the axles, you need the axles and the half shaft. We got all that. You need the transmission bracket for the mount on the rear. We got that. You need the transmission mount itself, has to be manual. Got that. You have a bracket that bolts from the bottom of the engine to the transmission. That's manual specific as well. We have the pedal assemblies. We have the center console, manual specific, the shifter cables, and of course I have the power steering cooler line and everything that I need in order to get the power steering system back in this car. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, the parts you need. And basically I have the doors open on the car right now, because where we're going to start on this is the center console. I'm going to get the seats out. We're going to take the center console off, and we'll start removing these bits and pieces and put the manual stuff in. We're going to utilize the factory ECU. It is automatic, but you have to trick it in order to be able to use it for manual. And the way you do that is we're going to trick it into believing it's in neutral at all times. There's a connector for that shifter. We're going to go ahead and short some wires together and make it think it's in neutral at all times, and you'll be able to utilize automatic ECU. So that's the trick to that. So let's go ahead now and start removing the seats and everything, and then as we go along I'll show you guys, okay? Let's do it. All right, removing seats is easy. 4 bolts, 14 millimeter, 2 in the rear, 2 in the front. Take the seats out, then we'll move on to the center console. Alright, so we need to figure out exactly how this center console comes out. I know these 3 bottom screws. Take those out and we'll just figure out the rest. I did the manual one, but this one is obviously different, so let's go ahead and tackle it. Alright, so we get the center console out, and you do have to put the shifter into neutral in order to get the clearance to get the console out. We're moving on to the shifter now. We have 3 connectors, 1, 2, and 3 that we have to remove. And then there's 4 of these 12mm bolts on all corners. And then a locking mechanism right here that you have to rotate to release. And there's a nut right there you undo to get the cable out. And then once we have that out, we'll remove this cable and we'll put all the manual stuff in its place. And then from there, we'll figure out the wiring to short it so that it reads neutral. And then we're gonna move up to the pedal assembly area. So let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, so as you can see, the cable, it goes in between the heat shield and that tunnel, and there's 2 10mm bolts that hold it up there. So to get access to that, we got to remove this nut right here, another one right there, and 2 bolts in the back, 1, 2, and then at that point we can move the heat shield down far enough to get to the bolts, get it out, get the cable out, replace it with the manual, bolt that back in, and then put the shifter assembly and all that back in there, and then we'll move on. Alright y'all, so the shifter cable and the shifter is installed now. And I thought that I was going to have to do my wiring right here on this 10-pin connector. And they were talking about 10-pin connector in one of the forums, and I thought it was that one because on Integras, I've done a manual swap before and I had to wire stuff in on a connector that went to the shifter assembly. On this Prelude, that's not the case. It's different. Right, so we have to do our wiring for the clutch switch and all that stuff, reverse switch, and fooling the computer to think it's a neutral or park with this connector here. This is the 10-pin connector they were talking about. So I could put the center console in now, and we will do that, but I'm going to cut this harness back so I can utilize that connector, and I'll solder wires off of that so that we can terminate them in the proper places so that we can have all those features, right? We want the cruise control to work, we want the clutch switch to work, and obviously the reverse light and all that stuff. So I don't have to do the wiring until the very end, so that's a good thing. And I can throw the center console in, and let's do that, and then we'll just get up underneath the dash and figure out what we got to do on this clutch pedal. I was doing a little bit of research on that as well, and it looks like more than likely I can do it from the inside out. So let's go ahead and throw that in, and then we'll move on. All right, so the center console is in place. We got the shifter and everything in place, and it looks manual, right? Besides that. But I was looking at the situation under the dash, and there's a cutout right there where that master goes, and there's a cutout above it where the bracket goes. So I went to the parts car and was looking at it, and there's 2 brackets underneath there that's spot welded in. The one that's against the bulkhead, started to peel it back because it looked like it was glued, but it was spot welded in 2 spots, and the bracket up on top is spot welded in 4 spots. So I'll show you what I'm talking about underneath the dash over here. Now I started to peel this bracket back because I thought it was just glued, right? So I put my flat blade under there, started pulling it back, and that's when I figured out it was spot welded. So I'm gonna take that out, and then I'll take a hammer on the ground with that and flatten it out so it's back to where it should be. And then up on top there's a bracket with 4 spot welds. Take both of those brackets out, and that's what I'll utilize to mount that in that car. And using that bulkhead bracket as a jig will allow me to find the proper placement to drill holes and whatnot. So it's going to be time consuming, it's going to be a pain in the ass. So with that being said, I'm going to take this and put it on a lift And I'm gonna push that parts car back in underneath it so that I can get my drill and everything and work with a swamp cooler blowing on me, man. It's getting hot, so let's go ahead and knock that out. All right, so these are the brackets right here. This one is for the master, and this one is for the upper support. And this one had more tack welds than I expected. I only saw 2, but once I shined the light in there at an angle, I was able to see the other ones. But yeah, you had basically 5 tack welds holding that on, 4 holding that on, and I'll show you under the dash. So as you can see, that's where it was at, and that's where it was at. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and be careful about doing this, because I don't want to screw it up, man. And I hate having to do this on a manual swap. This is ridiculous. I wish the factory would just do them to every chassis and you wouldn't have to deal with it, right? So let me push this back out and lower this one down and just see what the hell I could come up with. All right, y'all, update on the clutch pedal. I got the holes drilled out right here, and I was using the bracket along with the pedal to see about where it needs to be. And I gotta tell you, it's difficult. It's a difficult job. And I have the bracket in place right now. It's bolted up. That way I can accurately mark the center hole and drill it through. As you can see, the markings are off. That's because I'm having to go at an angle with the pedal and bracket on there, and I can't get accurate markings. And also up here as well, I was trying to find where the placement of it is, but the way I'm gonna go about it is I'm gonna first drill that hole out right there and then get it bolted up to the bulkhead, and then I'll see exactly where it falls in place on the top for the bracket, and then I'll make my holes for that. But let's see. Yeah, so here is the tab for the upper mount, and I just bolted it on. That way whenever I bolt it up, I can see exactly where it goes, right? It's a hard job, guys. It's really hard. It's difficult, and it's under the dash, and it just makes life hell. So just an update on what's going on. I'll show y'all whenever it's done. All right, everyone, I got the clutch pedal and master installed. It's in there now, and it's braced up top as well. You can see that. So it's a success, and it whooped my butt. I ain't gonna lie. My shoulder is sore, very sore, from crawling around in the floorboard area under the dash. It was no fun, but it's in there. I'm leaving this off for the time being because I got to put the line in, but it's in there, guys. It's done, and I'm done for the day, because this literally took me most of the day to do. It took me a while. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while, and it's a pain in the butt. Is it worth doing? It all depends on the car, if it's worth it to you. For me, this will probably be the last Prelude I ever manual swap. That's too much work, and I hate working under the dash. All right, I'll come back in tomorrow, do a little bit more, and then we'll end this episode. From the inside, it looks like a manual car, right? We got the pedals, shifter, center console. Looks like a manual car, besides the gauge, right? It's auto, but I got another gauge. So we're good on that. It'll look the full part inside. And the upper mount on that clutch pedal assembly, I actually have 2 bolts holding that in, and I did that with the use of some rivet nuts. So it's firmly mounted, no tap screws or anything like that. I've seen forums where people use tap screws and stuff. Man, that'll just kind of wiggle itself loose over time. That's the way to go if you're gonna take on this job. Get you some rivet nuts and get them mounted up in there. So I think I'm at a good stopping point for this episode, guys. That clutch will be in soon, and then I'll just go ahead and knock the rest out. It's just transferring parts over and whatnot, so I can knock things like that out relatively quick, and the wiring will be done towards the end, and we'll use this 10-pin connector, right, and get that thing wired up, and it should work fine. I'm hoping that I don't have any whammies and everything works out. The cruise will work, everything will work on that. So we'll just have to see when it's done. This is the first time I've ever 5-speed swapped a Prelude, so I learned a lot and experienced a lot. But yeah, man, I'm kind of spent today. I was gonna come in here and knock some more stuff out, but honestly, I consumed some beverages last night and had fun with some friends, and yeah, I'm just feeling it today, man. I want to go home and chill. So we're at a great point, like I said, and we'll just go and knock this out, and hopefully at the end of the next episode, we'll have a running and driving 5-speed swap Honda Prelude. So stick around. Love to have y'all watch and learn a thing or two, and watch me learn a thing or two, right? I'm all done on this episode, guys. Until the next one, y'all have a good day. Y'all peace out.